The Summer I Turned Pretty Season 3 Episode 11 feels like the moment everything flips upside down. He can't. Belly was his first real love, his anchor. And losing her to his brother cut deeper than anything else ever could, and Episode 11 doesn't shy away from showing just how badly this triangle has wrecked them all. Belly is torn between two people she genuinely loves. Conrad is desperate, putting his pride aside for the first time in years. Jeremiah is broken, trying to rebuild himself but unable to close the door, and as an audience, you're stuck right there with them, caught between wanting Belly to finally make a choice and dreading what that choice will do to the other. Now here's where the suspense comes in. Paris isn't just about Belly and Conrad reconnecting. There's something bigger happening underneath the surface. Belly's homesickness starts hitting harder, and her conversations with Laurel reveal that maybe Paris isn't forever. Maybe this was just a stop along the way, a place for her to find herself before coming back home to face everything she ran away from. Which raises the question, if Belly does return, who will she be returning for? Conrad, who followed her across the world, or Jeremiah, who's been waiting in the shadows, aching for her to come back? By the end of this section, one thing is clear: Episode 11 isn't about easy answers. It's about tension, heartbreak, and the slow unraveling of every wall these characters built around themselves. Belly's independence is tested, Conrad's patience is pushed to the edge, and Jeremiah's loyalty is torn apart. And the scariest part? You know that no matter who she chooses, somebody's heart is going to get shattered all over again. The weight of Episode 11 really settles in when we see just how much Belly's choices ripple beyond just her and the brothers. Paris was supposed to be her escape, her safe bubble away from Cousins Beach, away from the triangle that defined her teenage years. But the second Conrad shows up, the bubble bursts. Suddenly, her roommates notice she's distracted. Her new boyfriend senses something's off, and Belly herself is stuck between who she thought she was becoming and who she has always been deep down. And this is where the suspense takes over, because you realize that Paris isn't the real test. The real test is whether Belly can finally face the mess she left behind without running again. Conrad, on the other hand, is walking a thin line. He doesn't come barging in with demands or ultimatums. Instead, he plays it carefully. Almost too carefully, because he knows how fragile this moment is. He tells Belly he just wanted to see her, just wanted to wish her happy birthday. But let's be honest, nobody books a flight across the world just to deliver a simple birthday wish. Conrad has been holding this storm inside him for too long, and now, in Paris, it starts to spill. He admits he never stopped writing to her, that even when he tried to move on, every letter brought him right back to her, and when Belly listens, she doesn't push him away. She doesn't tell him to stop, she just stands there, torn between relief and fear, because the truth is, part of her has been waiting for this confession all along. But then there's Jeremiah. Even when he's not in the room, his presence hovers over every scene like a ghost. We finally see what's happening back home with him, and it's heartbreaking. He's surrounded by people, yet he's completely alone. He's the life of the party one minute and staring blankly into the night the next. And what's worse, he keeps replaying the moment Belly walked away, the moment Conrad stood there silent. And it's eating him alive. Jeremiah has always been the bright one, the one who hides his pain behind a smile, but now the cracks are showing, and when Steven tries to check in, Jeremiah shuts him out, proving that even his closest friends can't reach him anymore. The boy who once wore his heart on his sleeve is now building walls so high nobody knows how to climb them. Here's where the episode throws another punch. Belly writes in her journal, it's just a small scene, but it's everything. She writes about how Conrad showing up feels like fate. But she also admits she can't stop thinking about Jeremiah, and right there, you realize the triangle isn't dead, not even close. Because even if she wants to move forward, even if she wants to be the strong, independent Belly who chooses herself, her heart still refuses to pick a side. And this journal moment, it's the writers reminding us that no matter how much Belly grows, no matter how far she runs, the Fisher brothers will always be part of her story. But let's not forget, Belly isn't just torn about love. She's also torn about home. Her calls with Laurel cut deep, especially when Laurel tells her that Susanna would have been proud of her for finding her own path. But she also warns Belly that running away doesn't erase the past. That one line hits Belly like a brick, because for the first time, she admits out loud that maybe Paris was her way of hiding. Maybe she wasn't chasing independence as much as she was avoiding the pain that came with Conrad and Jeremiah. And let's be real, how many of us have done the same thing? Tried to bury heartbreak under new beginnings, only to realize it follows you wherever you go? Belly's realization is raw, and it sets the stage for what's coming, because if she can't face her past, she'll never move into her future. Meanwhile, Conrad is slowly peeling back his layers. He tells Belly about the letters, But he also admits something darker. He watched her Instagram stories from Paris. He saw her smiling with Benito and it nearly destroyed him. And here's the thing, Conrad never admits jealousy. He's always been the one who swallows his feelings, who hides behind his calm, detached mask. So when he says this, when he looks Belly in the eyes and admits that seeing her with someone else ripped him apart, you know he's finally done pretending, and Belly feels it too. Her face softens, her voice shakes, because as much as she tries to stay strong, a part of her melts when Conrad is this vulnerable. But then the episode does something wild. Jeremiah calls again. This time, Belly answers, and let me tell you, the conversation is brutal. Jeremiah doesn't yell, doesn't cry, but his voice carries that quiet pain that cuts deeper than any outburst ever could. He asks her if Conrad's there, and the silence on her end gives him all the answers he needs. Jeremiah doesn't need to hear yes, the pause tells him everything, and in that moment, you can feel the shift. Jeremiah realizes that no matter how hard he fights, no matter how much he loves her, Conrad will always be there, lingering in the corners of Belly's heart. And the craziest part, he doesn't hang up, he doesn't slam the phone in anger, he just says, "Take care of yourself, Bells," and the call ends, simple, quiet, heart-shattering. By the end of this section, episode 11 feels like it's building a storm that's about to crash down on all of them. Belly is torn between two loves, Conrad is breaking down every wall he's ever built, and Jeremiah is bleeding silently in the background, and as viewers, you're left sitting on the edge of your seat because you know that one choice, one word, one kiss could change everything. But the question remains, does Belly even know what she truly wants? Or is she still too scared to admit the answer? The thing about episode 11 is that it doesn't just give you answers, it plays with your emotions, dangling hope in front of you before yanking it away. And that's exactly what happens after Jeremiah's quiet phone call. Belly sits in silence, staring at her phone long after the line goes dead, and you can practically hear her heartbeat pounding in her chest. She knows what Jeremiah's silence meant. She knows the way he said take care wasn't just goodbye for the night, it was goodbye to something bigger. Maybe goodbye to the idea of them ever being the same again. And the guilt, it starts crawling all over her, eating away at every smile she tried to put on in Paris. Conrad notices, of course, he always does. That's one thing about him, even when Belly tries to hide her feelings, Conrad reads her like an open book. He asks if she's okay, and the look in his eyes says he already knows the answer. Belly, torn between honesty and denial, mutters that she's fine, but deep down, we all know she's lying. Because how could she be fine when one boy is right in front of her pouring his heart out, and the other is thousands of miles away, slipping further and further from her grasp? This is where the tension in the episode starts pressing down so hard you feel like you can't breathe. But here's where it gets even heavier. Benito enters the picture again. He senses the shift too. He's no fool. He knows Belly's energy has changed, that her attention isn't fully on him anymore. And instead of pulling away gracefully, he presses harder, asking questions, digging for clarity. He wants to know what Conrad means to her. Why her face softens whenever Conrad is around. Why her phone calls always seem to end with a shadow over her mood. And the way Belly freezes under that pressure is painful to watch, because for once, she can't laugh it off or push it aside. She's forced to confront the fact that maybe she's been using Benito as a distraction, a way to convince herself she'd moved on, when the truth is, her heart never really left Cousins Beach. This is where Paris shifts from being the city of love to the city of conflict. Belly thought she was building a new version of herself here, but instead, it becomes a mirror reflecting back everything she tried to run from. She sees Conrad's longing, Jeremiah's pain, Benito's questions, and she sees her own confusion staring back at her in the reflection. And honestly, isn't that the scariest part? Not knowing who you are when love forces you to confront the ugliest parts of yourself. Belly realizes she isn't just hurting Conrad or Jeremiah. She's hurting herself too, because every day she refuses to make a choice, she sinks deeper into guilt and doubt. And that's a prison no city can free her from. Meanwhile, back home, Jeremiah's spiral takes an even darker turn. The boy who once lived for summer nights and easy laughs now avoids them altogether. He skips out on hangouts, ignores Steven's calls, and when Taylor checks in, he brushes her off with a fake smile, but you can tell, behind those eyes, the pain is boiling. He replays every memory of Belly, every kiss, every laugh, every promise. And it drives him mad. And then comes the moment that broke me completely. Jeremiah finds one of Belly's old notes, tucked away in his drawer. Just a simple piece of paper, just a scribbled reminder of their love. But it undoes him. He sinks to the floor, clutching it like it's the last piece of her he'll ever have. And right there, Jeremiah becomes more than the fun, carefree brother. He becomes a tragic figure. Someone who gave his heart too freely and ended up bleeding because of it. And here's the twist, Steven finally forces his way in. He corners Jeremiah, calls him out for pretending he's fine, and demands he open up. And for once, Jeremiah doesn't brush it off, he breaks. He admits he doesn't know how to breathe without Belly, that the betrayal cut deeper than he'll ever admit to anyone else, and that the worst part isn't losing her, it's losing her to his brother. Steven doesn't even know what to say, because how do you comfort someone whose heartache is tangled up in family? The scene is raw, it's messy, and it sets the stage for what's about to happen next, Jeremiah deciding whether he can forgive, or whether this wound will define him forever. Back in Paris, Conrad takes a risk. He asks Belly straight out, "Do you still love me?" And the silence that follows, brutal. She doesn't say yes. She doesn't say no, she just looks at him with those conflicted eyes. And it's enough to drive anyone crazy. Conrad, being who he is, doesn't push. He just nods like he expected that answer all along. But you can see it in his face, the silence cuts him deeper than any rejection. And Belly? She's left trembling because even though she couldn't say the words, her heart screamed them, loud enough for both of them to hear. But episode 11 isn't done twisting the knife yet. Because just when you think things can't get more complicated, Laurel calls with news. Something's happening back home. Something that forces Belly to make a decision she's been avoiding. Whether to stay in Paris or come back. And though the details are vague, you can tell it's serious. Laurel's voice is tight, careful, like she's holding back tears. And Belly, caught between her new life and the mess she left behind, realizes her summer of freedom is over. The real world is calling, and with it, the unresolved mess of Conrad, Jeremiah, and everything in between. By the end of this section, the episode leaves you dangling on the edge. Belly is frozen between three lives, the life she's built in Paris with Benito, the love Conrad is begging her to accept, and the broken bond with Jeremiah waiting for her back home. And as viewers, you're screaming at the screen because you know, no matter which way she turns, someone's world is about to crumble. Episode 11 doesn't just test Belly's heart, it tests her strength, and it's wild because for the first time, she isn't just the girl caught between two brothers. She becomes the girl who has to carry the weight of every choice, knowing it will leave scars no matter which way she turns. When Laurel's call shakes her out of her Paris bubble, Belly realizes there's no more hiding. She can't keep dancing between versions of herself, the carefree Paris girl, the devoted Fisher girlfriend, the independent dreamer. She has to face reality. And reality has a way of dragging you right back to where it all began. Conrad senses the shift instantly. He watches her panic, her restless pacing, and he offers what he always does, steadiness. For years, Conrad has been the one she looked at when the world tilted, but this time, she doesn't run into his arms, she pulls back. She tells him she needs space to think, and the way Conrad reacts, painful. You can see him fighting the urge to argue, to beg her not to slip away again. But instead, he takes a step back, proving he's learned the hard lesson that love isn't about forcing, it's about waiting. And that right there, that's what makes him different. He's willing to lose her if it means giving her the freedom to choose. But freedom feels like a curse to Belly because the moment she's left alone, her thoughts spiral. She replays Jeremiah's soft take care, the heartbreak laced in his silence. And it stings worse than anything. She thinks of Conrad's eyes, the way they burned when he asked her if she still loved him. And she hates herself for not answering. And then Benito, sweet and undeserving of all this chaos, shows up at her door with a bouquet, ready to celebrate her birthday, and the guilt almost drowns her because in that moment, she realizes she's doing to Benito what she fears most, stringing someone along when her heart isn't fully in it. Meanwhile, Jeremiah can't escape the storm brewing inside him. That old note Belly left behind isn't just paper anymore. It becomes a reminder that he was once her world. He reads it over and over, convincing himself she meant every word, convincing himself that Conrad can't erase what they had, and it's dangerous because that's when his anger starts surfacing. For so long, Jeremiah's pain was quiet, passive, hidden behind fake smiles and empty hookups, but now, it's sharpening into something else, resentment, not just at Conrad, but at Belly too. And the scariest part? You can see the flicker of bitterness that could change Jeremiah into someone unrecognizable. If it keeps growing, Steven tries again to pull Jeremiah back, dragging him out to a late-night hangout, but Jeremiah's not in the mood. He drinks too much, laughs too loud, and when Steven calls him out, Jeremiah snaps. He blurts out that maybe Belly never loved either of them the way they loved her. Maybe she just liked being wanted. And the second the words leave his mouth, he regrets them, but it's too late. The truth behind the bitterness has already been exposed, and Steven knows it. Jeremiah is unraveling, and unless something changes fast, he's going to burn every bridge around him. Back in Paris, Belly and Conrad share one of the rawest conversations of the series. It's late, the streets are quiet, And the two of them sit on a park bench under the dim glow of a streetlight. Conrad, trying to hold back but failing, asks her if she regrets the years they spent apart. Belly doesn't answer right away, and when she finally does, her words sting. She says she regrets the way they hurt Jeremiah. That's when Conrad finally breaks. He tells her he regrets everything too, but not loving her, never loving her. And the way his voice cracks, the way his carefully built walls collapse right there in front of her. It's the kind of vulnerability that makes you wonder how Belly can ever walk away from him. But she doesn't give in, not yet. Belly is torn between her guilt and her desire. And she admits something that shocks even herself. She still loves Jeremiah too. And hearing that out loud makes her realize just how trapped she really is. Because if love was simple, she'd already know who to choose, but it's not. It's messy, it's unfair. It's the kind of love that doesn't just break hearts, it breaks families. And Belly is terrified of being the one who destroys what's left of the Fisher brothers' bond. The suspense spikes when Jeremiah finally books a flight. Yep, he's coming to Paris. And the second you hear it, you know this episode is about to blow everything wide open. Jeremiah isn't coming to talk, he isn't coming to heal. He's coming because he refuses to let Conrad win without a fight, and that changes everything because for the first time, this triangle isn't just about Belly's choice. It's about survival, it's about pride. It's about two brothers who are ready to risk their relationship, their trust, and maybe even their future just to hold onto the same girl. And Belly, poor Belly, doesn't see it coming. She's sitting in her Paris apartment staring at Conrad, staring at Benito, staring at her phone. And she thinks she still has time to figure it all out, but she doesn't. Because Jeremiah is already on his way, carrying the storm with him. And when he lands, everything Belly thought she knew about herself, about love, about loyalty, is going to shatter. By the end of this section, Episode 11 has you clutching your chest. You know the collision is inevitable. You know Paris is about to become the battlefield where every hidden feeling, every letter, every betrayal comes roaring to the surface. And the scariest part? No matter what happens, somebody's walking away broken. By the time Episode 11 reaches its final act, the stage is set for the explosion we've been dreading since the beginning. Belly, Conrad, and Jeremiah, three lives entangled in love, loyalty, and betrayal, are all about to collide in Paris. And the way the writers build this tension? It's masterful. You can feel it in the pacing, in the way every word lingers, in the way every silence cuts deeper than dialogue ever could. Belly is already unraveling. She thought she had more time, more space to figure out her heart, but the second Jeremiah's flight gets confirmed, you can see the panic flicker in her eyes. Because now it isn't just about what she wants. It's about what happens when both brothers stand in front of her, forcing her to finally answer the question she's been running from for years. And let's be honest, Belly has never been good with pressure. She freezes, she doubts, she overthinks, but in this episode, there's no more running. The showdown is coming. Whether she's ready or not. Conrad, meanwhile, tries to stay calm. But if you look closely, you can see his mask slipping. He knows Jeremiah is on his way. He knows this might be his last chance to prove that his love for Belly isn't just words. It's action. And when he finally opens up to her, really opens up, it's gut-wrenching. He admits that he's loved her since the very first summer, that every mistake he made came from fear of losing her, and that even when he stepped aside for Jeremiah, he never stopped loving her. His voice trembles, his eyes burn, and for once, Conrad Fisher isn't the cool, collected older brother. He's just a boy in love, begging not to lose the only girl who's ever mattered. But just when you think Belly might finally cave into those words, Jeremiah arrives, and the energy in the room shifts instantly. You can almost hear the air crackle when he walks in. He doesn't explode, doesn't shout, doesn't throw punches, but the silence between the brothers says it all. Years of rivalry, years of suppressed resentment, years of pain hanging heavy in the air. Jeremiah looks at Conrad, then at Belly, and you can see the hurt etched across his face. He came all this way because he refuses to let his brother take what's left of his heart without a fight. The confrontation that follows is brutal. Jeremiah tells Belly that if she still loves him, now is the time to say it. He tells her he can forgive the past, he can fight through the pain, but only if she chooses him here and now. And the desperation in his voice is enough to break anyone. Watching, Conrad, on the other hand, stays quiet at first, giving Belly space. But when Jeremiah presses, Conrad finally steps in and the tension explodes. The brothers clash, not with fists, but with words sharper than knives. Jeremiah accuses Conrad of always taking what's his, of hiding behind silence until it's too late. Conrad fires back, reminding Jeremiah that Belly was never his to begin with. She has always been her own person, capable of choosing for herself. And Belly? She stands frozen, tears in her eyes, realizing that her silence is the very thing fueling their fight. Paris turns into a battlefield, not of violence but of emotions. Belly is pulled apart by two loves, both real, both raw, both demanding answers. And just when she opens her mouth to finally speak, the episode cuts. No decision, no resolution, just Belly standing between the Fisher brothers, heart racing. Tears falling as the screen fades to black, a cliffhanger so cruel. It leaves you screaming at your TV. And that's the genius of episode 11, it doesn't give you closure, it doesn't hand you answers, it makes you sit in the mess, in the heartbreak, in the unbearable suspense of not knowing what comes next. Will Belly follow her heart and risk losing a brother forever, or will she choose safety, letting go of the love that's burned inside her since the very first summer? Nobody knows. But one thing's for sure, episode 12 is going to be explosive. So, if you thought the love triangle was ending, think again. Episode 11 proves that the story isn't just about who Belly loves, it's about how love changes you, how it breaks you, and how it forces you to face the darkest parts of yourself. The Fisher brothers may never be the same after Paris. Belly may never look at herself the same way again, and us fans, we're left hanging on the edge, waiting for the finale that promises to either heal or destroy everything we've invested in. One thing is clear, this isn't just a summer story anymore. It's the story of growing up, of making choices that hurt, of realizing that sometimes love isn't enough to keep everyone whole. And that's exactly why we can't stop watching. Don't miss what's coming next, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button on Teleboss so you're here with me when episode 12 drops. Trust me, you're going to want to talk about what happens next.